Subscribe to Film Companion for your film fix. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Hey everyone, you're watching FC Retake, in which Rahul, Desai and I sort of pick films from the past and rediscover them, really speaking. Go back to how we felt about them. Did we change the way we felt? I do that, I don't know, quite often.
Very often.
Hai na? Because you see a film but you're a different person.
Yeah, and every year, as in most films we talk about, I think every year, if we're honest to ourselves, we change the way we feel about it.
Yeah. So in the first episode, we saw Tamasha, which I loved much more in this second round of viewing. And today we're going to talk about another Ranbir Kapoor film. Did we plan this?
It'll become a retrospective soon, given the amount of films. There'll be like Roy, Bombay Velvet. There's so many we can talk about
Roy,
later.
I don't think, Rahul, that I will change my
You said
opinion.
that about Tamasha too, but okay.
But today we're here to talk about Jagga Jasoos. I didn't review the film because
you didn't? Okay.
I don't know why. I think I was traveling and I didn't see it at the time, and I came back when it had already collapsed completely.
Right. Yeah.
And then when I saw it, I of course didn't sit down and write my thoughts down, but I remember really sort of marveling at the imagination. What was your first response?
Pretty much the same. So I went in obviously on the back of Barfi, which is one of my favorite films of last decade. So I did expect the kind of, that whole magical, the imagery that he uses, the very Amelie kind of look that he gives the film. When I watched the film, of course, I think I was reviewing it on a Friday morning. So I think it didn't work for me. I was a little sad about it. I wasn't really disappointed or anything. I was a little sad it didn't come together. I didn't feel the kind of strong emotions that I felt during Barfi. And again, that's unfair, comparing it to his previous film, which was critically and commercially acclaimed. But as time passed, and I think I watched it 2 more times after that, not in one sitting, but I think it's sort of grown on me in the sense that I get what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
And hats off to that, because I don't actually think there's any other director in the Hindi film industry who takes the kind of leaps of faith, especially the visual innuendo in his films, the acting with your body, and it's a very unusual language. And I thought I love what he was trying to do. Again, I will say that the entire second half, especially the action sequences and all, it's very difficult to sort of put them in a musical way. And the rhythm didn't, maybe of the action sequences, of the plot moving forward through the songs, that's all, that was a massive gamble. It sometimes came off, it sometimes didn't, but I cannot help but marvel at, it's just magical. It reminded me of why I like the kind of movies I do, and why I used to watch cartoons as a kid or read comic books as a kid.
Because it is a comic book.
It is a comic book. Every frame is designed as a comic book panel.
With all those saturated colors and with the Tintin hair.
And so many references. So many, you can really sense Anurag Basu's sort of hat tip to a lot of things. See, I know there was a controversy in Barfi and there were accusations of plagiarism, and I get why the line was very thin back then, because the particular scenes that were inspired in Barfi were actually plot points of Barfi.
Right.
Especially the notebook scene where the mother goes back and shows the daughter.
So it was an exact thing.
So yeah.
It's not paying homage.
Exactly.
It was the
so
exact
I
thing.
can see why that was so controversial.
Yeah.
But in Jagga Jasoos, I feel what he was trying and what he got carried away with in Barfi sort of came full circle in Jagga Jasoos, because here you could actually sense his homage. You can actually sense the lot of tons of Bengali references, the Satyajit Ray sort of little
the
play
detective,
on words, the detectives, and a lot of other films like the whole Clock Tower, the episode, then after that another episode, were all inspired, and he was pretty upfront about it right from the time he was talking in the interviews about the film. So I thought they were lovely homages, and even when we think right now about our lives, or even when I think about various films, I always think in the language of my favorite filmmakers or my favorite film. So at least for a while, I remember after Jagga, I was thinking musically for I mean, the songs were stuck in my head.
You're singing to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, if I couldn't like basically express myself like, which I am pretty bad at most of the time, but I used to think about, you know, his condition in the film.
Right.
And I like that, I like the fact that there was a reason for the musical. It wasn't just people singing, dancing, speaking.
For no reason,
He stutters, so he needed to sing, which I thought was really nice.
Somehow I can't imagine you singing. Now you should try
it's better not to. I don't think we're doing a method interview.
But you're right. You aren't somebody who's comfortable expressing yourself. So maybe you should just go into song.
Maybe I related to it a lot more later because of that.
Yeah. But you know, I also thought Pritam's music was really remarkable in the way that it wrote exactly to the situation.
Right.
You know, I mean, I loved Khana Khake Chale Gaye.
That's an amazing song, and there's so many. I mean, you'd call it the most useless song of the film if you think about it.
Because what does it do?
Yeah, but if you think about it, it's Calcutta. It's sort of a Bengali house party. Everyone's drinking, having fun, and trust the mood there to go from, you know, like a harmless line from Khana Khake Daru Pi Ke Chale Gaye to a philosophical sort of take on it, and where Ranbir saying that life is a party and this is our way of
correct, and we all will
which was lovely, and it has to come through with the music, with the music director involved right from the beginning, with the lyricist right from the beginning, and as I said, it's like literally the film is written through the music, and it's a skill that is I maintain it's probably the toughest skill in filmmaking.
My other favorite was Galti Se Mistake.
Oh, lovely.
In the boarding school. And just the choreography was so wonderful.
And Ranbir dancing it, for once I just wanted to make me like just get out and do I mean, and if you notice, he actually repeats the steps in various actions throughout the film.
Right.
You know, even when he's running from people and when he's, you know, in a chase sequences and all, somehow you feel like this is the same guy who danced to that song, who's running now, but he's so, you know, musical in his everything that he can't help himself.
So Rahul, why do I feel like you live vicariously through Ranbir's characters?
I think I do. I think, and I hope people don't just blame me for sort of relating only to his man-child characters, because this is his most optimistic character.
There you go.
And
so somewhere inside you,
there is a Ranbir or a child, sometimes both. But
you know, what I also really loved was the audacity of the storytelling. You know, it is the story within the story within the story. Meaning they were all meshing in and out of each other. But I think that's perhaps also what got away from.
Yeah, did it get too crowded for you? Because towards at least the second half, you know, when you go from wherever they are to Kenya to Calcutta to you know
Shundi,
bunch of to Shundi obviously. And I mean, as beautiful as the references were and as lovely as there were moments throughout the film, and you know, Amitabh Bhattacharya, who written the lyrics, is literally the screenwriter of the film, because he's actually spelling out what's happening through his songs, and I thought that's a very specific skill in this industry, given that Bollywood is such a song and dance thing. It's quite amazing that we don't really make musicals in the purest
not
sense.
Like this.
Yeah, not like this.
Not like this.
I mean, Janeman was made 12 years ago or 13 years ago. This was the film that sort of tried to bring it back, and there was a reason that bombed and this bombed, because I don't think people can sort of distinguish the difference between playback song and dance in a film, which Bollywood is always known for, and the fact that the entire form of the film is music. There is a big difference. Yeah, and it takes some getting used to. But
I felt like Rahul, he just had too much to tell. Too many, even just frames, starting with the beginning of the arms drop in this place, and I felt like he wanted to cram it all in, and at some point it got away from him. You know, it just, by the end of it, there are moments of such almost transcendent beauty. You know, I love that idea of the red circle when people are meant to meet. You know, just the whole kind of connection and the humor. You know, like the little things with Saurabh Shukla's character. He's in that van and he says Gandho, and that guy has a very big gun and he's like Chota Gandho. It's just so lovely to find those little moments. But I just felt like if he had perhaps had a producer who had sort of come down you know, and just said this is okay, this is not okay, because sometimes maybe when you have so much and your imagination is so fertile, you just need an outsider to say,
exactly,
pair it, you know.
No, absolutely. Like, I think that's what I remember writing in my review, at least thinking about it while I was writing, that there's this lovely scene early on in the film, which is a homage to Amelie, basically, where he, as a kid, after his father leaves him, he decides to just for a while make other people happy for the heck of it, and it gets that bench on which two hearts are drawn, and finds the 50 years ago, he finds the old man and makes him happy. I thought that was a lovely scene, and I thought if that tone was sort of maintained throughout the film, because that was, even the boarding school was the Barfi boarding, was the same place where Jilmil was kept, you know. I thought if they just maintained that kind of universe instead of, I know we keep hoping for filmmakers to think big, and it looks beautiful sometimes on screen when they do, but this was the rare film in which I think there was so much detailing in every frame that if you eliminate all those locations that we eventually got for the sake of an adventure, Tintin-like adventure, if you eliminate all of that, I think the beauty of the film would have actually been elevated.
It would have emerged more.
It would have emerged more, because, you know, we were very distracted by the scale of the film by the end. And as you said, there are so many thoughts, and you could sense how excited he was.
He was excited. Yeah, it was lovely.
I really liked the energy.
There's no cynicism in it.
There's no cynicism, and it's such a happy space, you know, coming from Gangsta and Kites. He's suddenly making Barfi, and they all have a very specific visual tone. If I think of Gangsta, I think blue. If I think of Barfi, I think, you know, golden magic light. Most of the film, and even here the vivid colors and all. So I like that it's such a happy space, and I like it that it was such a positive film. But again, I mean, even now when I watched it, I just find myself saying that I wish.
I know.
You know, I wish.
I also felt like Rahul, he didn't need to spell out the contemporary messaging, the resonance of, you know, of course it's kind of based in the very real incidents of the arms drop, but then, you know, later on at one point Jagga's character says ki ऐसे ही अगर मंडी आर्म्स की मंडी बनाते रहे, we'll be extinct like dinosaurs, and I just feel like you don't need to spell it, like we get it, you know, you don't need to. Did that bother you?
Yeah, so I was just going to come to that, because those particular parts where it becomes social in between and where he's sort of weaving in cultural events of Bengal over the last 20-25 years, I feel like it may not have worked in the narrative. Even while I was watching it, I remember that I was like, okay, slight disconnect. But if you think about it, the reasoning behind it was actually very good, because the whole film is narrated by Katrina Kaif's character, who's a journalist, to children in sort of a classroom and in a book reading, and she's actually narrating chapter after chapter, especially in the first half. So I can understand why those sort of things were put in, because you're basically appealing to children. You're basically directly narrating it to children. So, and if you do narrate it to children, it's important to impart education as well as as well as creativity. So I get that it did fit in a logical sense, like, you know, the left side of the brain, but, you know, on the sort of right side of the brain, which is the magical sense, it sort of brought down the film a little.
Speaking of Katrina Kaif, I know you didn't think she fit.
I did not think she fit.
I thought she was quite nice. Really? Yeah, she was sort of bumbling, and
I like that. You know, so the thing is, her character, see, like, even when it comes to musicals, most people think of a story, the filmmakers think of a story and then sort of decide about how to adapt the story into a musical language, into the form. Here I think Anurag Basu went the opposite way. He wanted to make a musical, and he started weaving a story around how he could sort of bring the musical language to the forefront, and which is why I like the little things he did to the characters, especially with Ranbir and his stutter, and which and Katrina and her bad luck, and his father and
bad
his
luck
bad luck, which I thought fit very well into the musical language. I thought the parts where, you know, I thought the traits given to a character were very nice, but I also thought that I don't think she I didn't think she pulled it off, because it's not really because of her own limitations. It was also because Ranveer was so fantastic with his body acting. You know, he hardly spoke in the film. Everything he did, all his expressions were his body moving or his face moving, or him sort of trying to tell us the film in music. And same with his father also, you know, such a fantastic actor. And it's difficult when you're, and given that Katrina did have so much screen time, you did feel it sort of, again they gave her a backstory of, you know, coming from London and all to justify the accent.
Yeah.
It didn't really work because she was a serious journalist and she was trying to, trying to get her own job done. But yeah, she did bring it down. Even now when I watched it again, her character really did not work for me, even now. Even though I love the traits, I mean, yeah, but though I have seen her improve after that. So there's no doubt about it.
There's a happy ending.
Yeah, there is.
But we can't end without speaking, of course, about Ranbir, who I think is just exceptional. He's such a seamless actor. Like, you can't actually see him acting, and I think what worked here was also his inherent innocence. He kind of minds that part of him rather than the sort of the Casanova, Jawani Diwani type of persona, the man-child. You know, here he's literally this earnest, really sweet, neglected boy, and I think his performance was just wonderful. And what a shame that he would co-produce this film
I know.
and burn his fingers so badly that he probably won't take these risks again.
Exactly, that was what I was most, I was just sad about that, because when the film didn't do well, even though parts of it may not have worked for a lot of critics and audiences, I was just hoping somehow it pulls through, because the risks taken are very few and far between now. And Ranbir, especially given his performance in this film, I do have a lot of favorite Ranbir performances, but this one has sort of grown on me over time, because I know he doesn't have much to do in a very conventional sense in this film, but it's a different kind of acting. It's almost a Broadway style of acting, which, as a lot of actors will say, is the toughest kind of acting.
Sort of Chaplin-esque, wouldn't you say? Yeah.
And it's very difficult to do because you have to be in sync of every frame that Anurag Basu has storyboarded, has conceived, and you have to seamlessly sort of fit into every frame and be part of the production design, which is really difficult to do, and not enough actors can do it. And I like the leap of faith as usual, but I just hope he sort of does not think twice before taking such a risk like that. But this was a bigger risk than a Barfi.
Absolutely.
It was a bigger risk than a lot of films he's done, even though he has taken risks. Especially for the scale of it. Again,
this is just too innovative at every level.
Yeah, which is why that fundamental thread of son finding father was beautiful. If it had just sort of focused a little more on that in an emotional sense, in a sentimental sense, and rather sort of scale down the adventure of it, I thought, because all the great musical, the cartoons are always about a journey, either son finding a father, finding Nemo, a lot of and the basics were all there. It was just how much he wanted to put in. You could say he needed an editor, you could say he needed a screenplay, extra screenplay writer, but we can keep saying that.
What did you think of Bad Luck Babuji?
I thought it was one of, for me, the most moving father characters I've seen in a while in India.
And Sasudha Chatterjee just did an amazing job.
And especially for people like me who aren't really exposed to his roles beyond Hindi cinema.
Yeah, me neither.
Except Bob Biswas, I was like, okay, it'll be a nice change, sort of. But he really took me by surprise as to how much gravitas he managed to lend to the film, even when he was absent.
Right.
Especially when you see Ranbir's face and saying, tutti frutti, tutti. And when you see him, you can almost imagine Shashwata somewhere in some corner of the world thinking of Jagga.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful that, an actor by not being on screen is still acting.
I also love the sort of that strain of humor in him, because no matter how serious he looked, there was just something very comical, which was just so sweet. I loved it. Like I said, hopefully a sequel.
Yeah, same, and hopefully with the father. And it was my favorite father character after Farooq Sheikh's in Ye Jawani. Again, a Ranbir father, but this is entirely a coincidence. But yeah,
we will have to talk, Rahul.
Yeah, sure.
Well, it ends with that lovely shot of Nawazuddin Siddiqui as the uber villain.
That was a nice touch.
That was a lovely touch, and I am hoping that someday somebody takes that narrative forward.
Yeah, I just keep thinking that, okay, maybe since the film didn't work, maybe they can make a film where both Barfi and Jagga are in the same film together, a shared universe. It would be nice because the look of the world was the same.
Yeah.
I just felt like you combine a hit film and a not hit film, you'll balance
maybe
it out.
Get a hit film.
Yeah, maybe.
And if you get Nawaz with 2 heads,
I
as
mean,
a villain,
what's better
I'm
than
in
one
line
Nawaz,
already.
2 Nawaz?
we're there.
Yeah.
First day, first show.
Absolutely.
Oh God. Well, we can live in hope. Rahul, that's what
hope
we
so.
do.
Yeah.
Always, always. So folks, we'll be back next month. And next month, we're going to be talking about, Rahul, you announce it.
Next month, we'll be talking about Meri Pyari Bindu, which is again a film that opened to mixed responses when it released. But we'll be going slightly in depth into the film and we'll tell you about it.
And hoping that we'll convince you to assess it as well. Thank you for watching.